Back when Eisenhower was the president, golf courses is where most of his time was spent. So I never really listened to what the president said, because in general I believed that the general was politically dead. But he always seemed to know when the muscles were about to be flexed, because I remember him saying something, mumbling something about a military-industrial complex.
As I have walked among the desperate, rejected, and angry young men, I have told them that Molotov cocktails and rifles would not solve their problems. I have tried to offer them my deepest compassion while maintaining my conviction that social change comes most meaningfully through nonviolent action. But they ask, and rightly so, what about Vietnam? They ask if our own nation wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its problem, to bring about the changes it wanted. Their questions hit home, and I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. For the sake of those boys, for the sake of this government, for the sake of the hundreds of thousands trembling under our violence, I cannot be silent.
Each one reach one, each one time.
I cannot be silent.
Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Everyone must play a part. Everyone's got to go to work. Work for peace. Spirit said work.
I cannot be silent.
Empowering the body, mind, and spirit. This is We Cannot Be Silent with Phil Restino and Larry Pinckney.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the October 21st, 2013 edition of We Cannot Be Silent with Phil Restino and Larry Pinckney. I'm Phil Restino, and I'm one of the co-hosts, obviously, and we're once again broadcasting on the Wolf Spirit Radio Network, and that's at wolfspiritradio.com. With Dave Corso, the man behind all the controls. And tonight we have a really good show lined up for you folks. And both Larry and I have had a chance to speak with our special guest, and Dave as well. And we're all very much looking forward to the show tonight. But before we introduce our guest, we're going to play a clip that some of you may have heard over the years on YouTube and various documentaries. You may recognize it, and it's a very powerful piece that we wanted to share with you all before we bring our guest on. Dave, would you have that clip ready to roll?
As a matter of fact, I do.
Oh, thank you.
We have an obligation to every last victim of this illegal aggression, because all of this carnage has been done in our name. Since World War II, 90% of the casualties of war are unarmed civilians, a third of them children. Our victims have done nothing to us. From Palestine to Afghanistan to Iraq to Somalia to wherever our next target may be, their murders are not collateral damage. They are the nature of modern warfare. They don't hate us because of our freedoms. They hate us because every day we are funding and committing crimes against humanity. The so-called war on terror is a cover for our military aggression to gain control of the resources of Western Asia. This is sending the poor of this country to kill the poor of those Muslim countries. This is trading blood for oil. This is genocide. And to most of the world, we are the terrorists. In these times, remaining silent on our responsibility to the world and its future is criminal. And in light of our complicity in the supreme crimes against humanity in Iraq and Afghanistan and ongoing violations of the UN Charter and international law, how dare any American criticize the actions of legitimate resistance to illegal occupation? Our so-called enemies in Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, our other colonies around the world, and our inner cities here at home are struggling against the oppressive hand of empire, demanding respect for their humanity. They are labeled insurgents or terrorists who are resisting rape and pillage by the white establishment, but they are our brothers and sisters in the struggle for justice. The civilians at the other end of our weapons don't have a choice, but American soldiers have choices. And while there may have been some doubt 5 years ago, today we know the truth. Our soldiers don't sacrifice for duty, honor, country. They sacrifice for Kellogg, Brown, and Root. They don't fight for America. They fight for their lives and their buddies beside them because we put them in a war zone. They're not defending our freedom. They're laying the foundation for 14 permanent military bases to defend the freedoms of ExxonMobil and British Petroleum. They're not establishing democracies. They're establishing the basis for an economic occupation to continue after the military occupation has ended. Iraqi society today, thanks to American help, is defined by house raids, death squads, checkpoints, detentions, curfews, blood in the streets, and constant violence. We must dare to speak out in support of the Iraqi people who resist and endure the horrific existence we brought upon them through our bloodthirsty imperial crusade. We must dare to speak out in support of those American war resistors, the real military heroes who uphold their oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, including those terrorist cells in Washington, D.C., more commonly known as the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Frederick Douglass said, "Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters." The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Every one of us must keep demanding, keep fighting, keep thundering, keep plowing, keep speaking, keep struggling until justice is served. No justice, no peace. No.
Wow. How about that? I'm getting an echo, Dave. Not now, though. Can you all hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, great. What a powerful speech, and some of us who have been speaking against these wars over the years will recognize who that speaker was. That's our special guest tonight, Dr. Dahlia Wasfi. And Dr. Dahlia Wasfi was born in the United States in 1971 to an American Jewish mother and an Iraqi Muslim father. After graduating from Swarthmore College with a BA in biology in 1993, she earned her medical degree from the University of Pennsylvania in 1997. Dr. Wasfi has made 2 trips to Iraq to visit her extended family since the 2003 shock and awe invasion, including a 3-month stay in Basra in the spring of 2006. She is an activist in support of ending the U.S.-led and U.S.-funded occupations, military and economic, of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Palestine. Her website is www.liberatethis.com, and we hope you all go there and take a look at it. And with that, we'd like to welcome our special guest this month, Dr. Dahlia Wasfi. Are you there, Dahlia?
I'm here, and I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for the beautiful introduction, and really thank you for having me on We Cannot Be Silent, because clearly I cannot be silent.
We kind of got that impression, that's for sure. And Larry Pinckney is the show's other co-host, and we would like to also introduce to our audience Larry. Larry, are you there?
Yep, I'm here, bro.
Oh, good. For those folks who might not know, Larry Pinckney and I have been doing this program for going on 2 years now, and we're fortunate to have a slot every month on the Wolf Spirit Radio network, which is wolfspiritradio.com. And Dave Corso is the fella that's behind that network, and it's a totally listener supported network. He's not beholden to any kind of advertisers or sponsors, so we can just go ahead and put out whatever we want to put out unabated. And if you do have a chance, please get on the website wolfspiritradio.com and look for the donate button and see if you can throw Dave and Wolf Spirit Radio a few bucks to keep this alternative media going. With that, we're going to go back to Dr. Dahlia Wasfi, our special guest for the October broadcast here, and I remember Dr. Wasfi and her powerful activism, thanks to the YouTubes, and a few years ago, she was at a conference up in Pennsylvania, Valley Forge. It was the Treason in America conference, and we got to see Dahlia do her presentation live, and it just amazing. But right now, I'd like to ask Dahlia to tell the audience and us a little bit about herself, and how she came to be an activist against these wars. And I think you'll really appreciate her story. Dahlia, would you like to do that for our audience?
Sure, I would love to. And just a quick thank you to those YouTube users who have shared my videos and on Facebook as well. The music in the background of the clip that was just played, that whole video was put together by YouTube user The Paradigm Shift. So I just want to credit the person responsible, because it really is so much more powerful with the music, but I didn't have the music going at the time. So I was born, as you said, I was born in New York in 1971. My father had come to the United States for his graduate education. He was born and raised in Basra, Iraq. Basra is the second largest city of Iraq, and it's in the south near the border with Kuwait. He had done well enough at Baghdad University to earn a government scholarship to do his graduate studies overseas, and he ended up coming to the United States. He attended Georgetown University and stayed at the International Student House, where he met another graduate student who was born and raised in the U.S., but her field was international relations, which is why she wanted to live at the International Student House. And she would be my mom. My parents met in 1963, got married in 1968, had my sister in 1969, and then I came along in 71. And my dad, 71, was the same year that my father finished his PhD. And as part of the deal of the government scholarship, for the same number of years that you studied overseas, you are supposed to go back to Iraq and teach as to pay back that scholarship. So the first 5 years of my life, My father was teaching the school year at Basra University, and so first 5 years of my life, my family was back and forth. My immediate family was back and forth between Iraq and the United States. So it all blended together for me. I really didn't have a sense of nationality differences. Certainly, I picked up on language differences after a while, but my childhood memories from New York, where we visited my grandparents, are as dear to me as my memories of our summers, our school years in Basra. So we came back to the U.S. in 1977, and this is actually a shameless plug here. I am working on a book to tell the story, but my father was actually escaping from Iraq. I was 5 years old at the time. I had no clue, but because my dad was pushing for changes at the university, and because everything in Iraq has political implications, ultimately we were escaping. Probably my mom could have gotten out as a U.S. citizen, but if my dad had been held back at the border, then as his children, we are Iraqis, and we probably would have been held back too. So that was a momentous occasion. But my father always intended to go back home and see his family again. But in 1980, the Iran-Iraq War started, and Basra, the city, and the Basra province was very much part of the war zone. And so that lasted for 8 years. And this was a very difficult time for my father, being here while his family was under bombardment. There was a glimmer of hope in 88 that perhaps things would improve now for his family and he might go back to visit. In the meantime, I'm moving forward in school. I'm trying to achieve. I have been successfully programmed as a materialistic capitalist, and I am seeking the American dream. I'm pretty much focused on myself and my own achievements. And that's when I started in college in the fall of 1989. And then in the summer of 1990, Iraqi troops moved into Kuwait. And 5 months later, there were 400,000 U.S. troops massed in the Gulf, preparing to attack Iraq. And then the first Gulf War began in January of 1991. And this, again, I was trying to focus on my accomplishments, but I knew I had family who were in grave danger. And while I had vague memories of my aunts and uncles, there was actually a whole new generation, my cousins, who had come along after we'd left. And I'd never met them, so I didn't have a very strong connection to them. But following the first Gulf War and the destruction of Iraq's infrastructure and the continuation of sanctions, life became extremely difficult for my family in Iraq, and they ended up relying on my father, sending money for them to survive. And really at some point they were also supplementing that by selling furniture, selling whatever they could, to try to just to eat. And these were desperate times, and it continued for 13 years until the build-up to shock and awe came. Of course, September 11th, 2001 happened during that time. By this time I finished medical school. I had moved on to my residency training, still looking for my piece of the pie, my six-figure salary as an anesthesiologist. This is what I was looking forward to. But there was something always gnawing at me. And by October of 2001, when we had launched an attack on Afghanistan, I started to connect the dots. Perhaps I was just in denial before, but I started to realize that I was paying taxes, and my taxes were being used to kill people. Without any, I'm not proud of this, but without any direct connection to Afghanistan, I really was just I still tried to push on with my career. But then when Iraq was in the crosshairs again, I really just couldn't do it anymore, and I took leave from my residency. The invasion happened, and after the invasion, for the first time, I wasn't in school or working, and I had also heard about Rachel Corrie, who was a college student who'd gone to occupied Palestine, with her only connection to the people living there being her humanity and their humanity. And she came to know people there as if she stayed with them and they were as close to her as her family in Olympia, Washington, and they felt she was like a daughter to them. And Rachel was killed trying to prevent the demolition of their home. And I was really struck by this all-American girl who could have turned a blind eye to the horrors of the world, but she went thousands of miles literally to stand up for what she believed in, and she paid the highest price for that. And I thought if she did that, then maybe I should go see my family. So, to make a long story only a little bit less than long, that was her as my inspiration. I went to Iraq for 3 weeks in 2004, visited with my family for the first time in 27 years, and I went back again in 2006 for 3 months. And part of the reason I stayed so long was I wanted to be able to get a glimpse of what life was like under occupation. Certainly, the fact that I had the ability to leave was a huge difference that could not be removed. So I will never know what my family deals with. But those were the hardest 3 months of my life, and having spent time with my family and seeing that they had no voice under dictatorship and then no voice under military occupation. I thought, well, I was born in the United States, so I'm an American citizen by birth. I have no foreign accent. Let me use that privilege to try to do something for them. And that's how my activism started. I wish I had had the forethought to say, now I want to be politically active and I want to do something. I want to make a difference. But really, I had a lot of guilt from being here in the U.S. while my government destroyed people's lives. And I wanted to give people my point of view because I thought that if enough people perceived Iraq the same way I did through the eyes of I have family there, then maybe it could make a difference. So my seeking continued until 2008 and pretty much came to a screeching halt once Barack Obama got elected. And I hold him personally responsible. But I think the atmosphere amongst those who were anti-war was that the Messiah had arrived and he was going to fix everything. So really I got far fewer invitations, and that's when I switched to writing a book, and it's 5 years later now, and I'm making really good progress. So hopefully that will also that the book will also make a contribution towards humanizing our victims, and that's whether basically military occupation is miserable no matter what the flag is on the soldier's uniform and no matter who the families are who are trying to survive under occupation.
Yes, boy. And I don't think anyone grows up planning to be a political activist, Dahlia. I think it just kind of happens, and Larry himself has been an activist his pretty much his entire adult life. Through he came up through the original Black Panther Party movement. But your experience, I want to get this right in referring the site to the listeners right now. You tell that your story in this book that you're writing, and right now for the public, you do have 2 segments of it available online for those who want to get a glimpse of what you're doing, what your book is about, and that's at writingforpeace.org, and that's the Poets Against War. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and Poets Against War, and the web address is writingforpeace.org, and the title of your 2 segments there, For Now They Struggle, by Dahlia Wasfi, and I highly recommend our listeners go and read those 2 pieces. And the turning point seemed to be for you, Dahlia, the Rachel Corrie story, and it moved you. It moved you into even more action, and God bless you for that. Larry. Larry, did you have any comments on that, or you want to keep moving along?
Let's keep moving along. Believe me, I'll comment when the time comes. So
okay.
Let's keep moving on.
And I think
may I interrupt for just a moment?
Yes.
You have a caller from the 610 area as well.
Oh, and I neglected to even mention the call line. Before we go to the caller, I would like to put the number out here. The phone number to call into the show with questions or comments is 775-657-5973. Again, that's 775-657-5973. And we also have a chat room that goes on during the show, and that's at wolfspiritradio.com, and the look for the chat button, and you should find your way into it, Wolf Chat. But we have a 2-hour program and plenty of time for calls and questions. But Dahlia, before we get to the caller, you were about to say something, I believe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mentioned Rachel Corrie. I mentioned Rachel Corrie as being the turning point for you.
Yeah, and I guess if I could do it all over again, I wish that political activism would have been something that I had grown up with. I mean, of course, with my background, in Iraq, political activism can get you killed, and my cousins still don't really understand what I've been doing with my time. But they have seen that video, and they were proud of me for making that speech. But in some of my talks, I've told my audience that theoretically, we live in a democracy, and democracy is not a spectator sport. You have to get active and get in there, and be informed. So activism, in a better world, would be just something that's part of what you do every day, like brushing your teeth in the morning. And I think to some extent in our daily lives, parenting is activism, or working with your children's school, like that is a form of activism. But I wish I had been more aware, because I started it later in life. If I had been wiser earlier on, I think I would have started sooner. But I've been very blessed with the attention that my work has gotten, which has spread the information that I have to a much bigger audience than I would have otherwise. So I'm very grateful to everyone who's listening tonight, to you guys for having the show, and for everyone on Facebook who shared this announcement. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you, Dahlia, and as I said before, and I haven't forgotten the caller, please stay with us. As I said before, I believe, your timing was just the way it was supposed to be, and we're all right where we're supposed to be, and hopefully out there as an example for others to step out too and get involved. But we already have a caller. That's great. Can we bring the caller on now, Dave? Hello?
Caller from the 6-1 area, would you please give us your name and the city you're calling from, please?
Jonathan or John Gold, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, hi, John. Welcome to the program, and I do believe I know who you are, and you were there in Valley Forge, PA, a couple years back yourself?
Yep, hi,
Correct.
John.
Hi,
okay. John Gold is a wonderful activist in his own right. Has been doing 9/11 Truth conferences for many years, and has been working very hard to bridge the gap between 9/11 Truth and those folks who are supposed to be stopping the 9/11 wars. But John, you've called in, and let's hear what you have to say. And welcome to the show. Thank you for calling.
Thank you, Phil, very much. Thank you, Larry. I was just honestly calling to give my utmost support to Dahlia, who is a dear friend of mine, and I love her to death. And it was funny, you mentioned the Treason in America conference, and I was the MC for that event, and how I got Dahlia to be one of the speakers there is someone showed me a video clip of her talking about Saddam Hussein and how the CIA, how she proclaimed that the CIA helped to get Saddam into power. And I just thought, well, if she's this truthful, this is somebody that should be heard. And so that's how she came to be part of the Treason in America conference.
Thank you, John.
Honestly,
check is in the mail.
I actually saw Dahlia today, so it was very good seeing her. Anyway, I don't want to take up Dahlia's time, but you guys have a great time, and thanks for having her on.
Well, don't go so quickly yet, John. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, good. I was at that conference, and I do believe I've mentioned this to Larry. Brett Bracewell, who Larry knows, that's my better half son, and Brett is with We Are Change Orlando. And Sandra Ellis, the wonderful woman down here in Orlando who does the YouTubes for our shows after Dave gets them up on the archives. Sandra's kind enough to put them on our own YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/We Cannot Be Silent. The three of us drove up to that conference. I guess it was like a 18 hour drive from Florida, and we were just blown away. It was such a wonderful conference, and there was something about Dahlia's presentation, John, where she was giving that slideshow, along with her talk of the pictures from Iraq, and she was talking about the U.S. government, be it through the CIA or other aspects of the government, first going into these places and making the trouble, and it was very educational. And the fact that she came from a mixed marriage or parents, I don't know if that's the right word to describe it, a Muslim father and a Jewish mom. And she was also able to talk about Israel and Palestine as well, which is connected to the other conflicts in a way. Wouldn't you say, Dahlia?
Oh, absolutely. That I've argued that the occupation of Iraq was an extension of the occupation of Palestine with a joint U.S.-Israeli occupation in both areas.
And John, I've been following your work for years. It's a very important work. And I know about the Treason in America conference. Of course, Dahlia knows. She was there. But would you be able to tell our audience a little bit more about it and what was behind it and what you had hoped to accomplish with it?
Well, we held it in Valley Forge, which was a very quote-unquote patriotic place. And so Betsy Metz was actually the financier behind the entire event. And she asked me to be the MC, and she also asked me to get some of my friends, my activist friends, to come and speak. And so that was my part of it. One part of Dahlia's talk during the Treason in America conference just made me burst out into tears, and it was the part where she showed the video of a soccer field that was turned into a cemetery.
Yes.
And it just broke my heart. And we were responsible for this. We were responsible for so many things. And it's just, when you really look at it, when you take the time and look at the hard things that we've done around this world, it just breaks your heart. And anyway, the Treason in America conference, the Treason in America conference was specifically meant to bring light to certain issues that you don't ordinarily hear about. That's all it was.
Well, it was fabulous, and I know, Dahlia, you were just about to say something in regards to what John was saying.
Yes, and sorry, John, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to mention that when Phil and I spoke earlier today, we were talking about how media really brought the Vietnam War home to people. So while they're eating their evening dinner, they're seeing these images of carnage in Vietnam. And still, it took a long time to extricate the U.S. from that country. And that the corporate media today had really learned its lesson. So that that was a segment of a documentary on Fallujah made by Tosha Cooney Doy called Fallujah, April 2004. And that's a segment. I mean, it's the real life that is sterilized when we say collateral damage. So I think everybody can be moved by that particular clip. So thank you for bringing that up, John.
Yes, thank you, John. And
anyway, guys, I'm going to let you. Betsy did a wonderful job, but I'm going to let you guys go. Have fun with Dahlia. And Larry Pinckney, I'm sure Cindy Sheehan says hello.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Tell Cindy I said hi.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Take care.
You too. Betsy Metz was the woman who, as John mentioned, did so much in putting together that conference, and it was really, really special. It was a couple of days. We had speakers from all over. One of our our buddies that does a radio show, Jack Blood, who folks probably know who listen to this program. He was one of the speakers. Finally got to meet him in person, and it really was special. But so we want to thank Betsy Metz and all the folks that put that program on, and it did get covered actually on national television on Nightline. ABC's Nightline came to cover it, and they actually had the loose change guys, Corey Rowe, an Iraq war veteran himself, and Dylan Avery, the fellows that made the loose change film, that the 9/11 documentary. They were interviewed, and they tried to stumble them. They tried to not put these guys in a good light, but the truth prevailed. Betsy Metz came across well on the program. The loose change guys stood their ground, and we have the truth on our side. And I think that's a big part of this activism, Dahlia, is to stay true to principle, and take comfort in knowing that we have the truth on our side. What are your thoughts on that there?
Well, it brings to mind a quote from Malcolm X. Hopefully I don't mess it up too badly, but he said, "Truth is on the side of the oppressed. Time is on the side of the oppressed. You don't need anything else." But that truth and that integrity that you talk about, it is, it's so easy to sell out. I think everybody has a price. I like to think that, mine cannot be met on this earth. But that's the most powerful thing I have, is consistency and honesty. And fortunately, that means I have to admit a lot of my mistakes, but I'm learning and growing as the journey continues. But I think that, let me tell you, it's in the years of the really strong anti-war movement, which wasn't only my speaking career that fizzled out once Obama came to office, but those who are, as you mentioned, the mainstays of the anti-war movement, all of a sudden there's a different guy living in the White House, but the policies are continuing, and the Pentagon budget is bigger, but there's nothing to be said, and I think that often happens. That's the tendency to happen for organizations, that the organization begins with a purpose, and a lot of these organizations, the purpose was to end the occupation and to end the wars. But then to maintain existence, to keep going, you need the occupation, you need the wars. And that's to maintain relevance, but you also, you end up, if your organization, to make your organization survive, that becomes the focus. So I can't call anybody out, because this is generally how I've put things together, but, that's where, the really hardcore people who are seeking change, who spend their lifetimes, dedicated to justice, and again, I am not in that category. I'm still a child when it comes to my years of activism, but those who are continuing shows like this, Philip, Larry, and Dave, who are making this possible, continuing to fight the good fight, that's, and that you would have me on for this conversation. I mean, that's a victory in and of itself. These are dark times, but I consider that a victory.
Well, it sure is, and that's the key. Once you start to compromise on any of this, it's and that's what happened with the anti-war left, and we got a Democrat in office, and I could speak for my own organization, Veterans for Peace. I've been with them since 2005, and what got me to join them, Dahlia, was this speech that this fellow Mike Ferner gave. It was right after John Gold mentioned Cindy Sheehan. She had testified with Ray McGovern and some other folks in what was called the basement hearings. And that was shortly after the Downing Street memo came out in 2005, May 1, 2005, which was a high-ranking British official leaked a memo from the meetings that the Bush administration had with the equal elements of the Blair administration, and they had basically said, look, we got to get this war going. We're going to tell our respective populations that we're under imminent threat of this attack from Iraq with weapons of mass destruction, even though they knew that was not the case. That's what they were going to sell it. And that meeting took place in July of 2002. And this memo came out in May of 2005, and these folks grabbed onto it. David Swanson, and after DowningStreet.org got born out of that, and Veterans for Peace really took off at that point. And this fellow Mike Ferner gave this righteous speech as to how it's not only our responsibility as citizens, but our duty as veterans to impeach this criminal president. And I saw that and I said, man, who are these guys? They're Veterans for Peace. I looked them up and I asked if I could join because I wasn't sure. I'm not a war veteran. I'm a peacetime veteran. They said, sure, you can join, Phil. And that's how I got involved with them and really took it to heart. And I believed every word they said, and I believe today just as much strongly in the statement of purpose of Veterans for Peace, which you can find at veteransforpeace.org. But here we go. In 2008, a Democrat got elected, and he was the first black American president. And everybody was high on that, and what happened though, the third day in office, Obama sent drone bombers into Pakistan, doing exactly what Bush was doing, which warranted a strong call for impeachment. And to this very day, Dahlia, you don't hear the anti-war left calling for impeachment. You don't even
hear the Republicans calling for impeachment.
No. Well, they, historically they dig war, but the people that hold themselves out to be for the purpose of stopping these wars, it seemed to be more about what my take on it is, and you alluded to this, is they were more concerned about the organization than its purpose. The purpose itself took second seat to, if we take this position, are we going to lose members or lose funding or whatever the case, and I believe that's been a big part of it. And Larry wrote about this in the summer of 2000. Well, he's been writing about for years, but specifically the impeachment issue. And Larry, do you have what's your take on that? When we went from the Republican to the Democrat and the first black American president, and who's left standing, so to speak, and what's the difference between the left that left and who was left standing.
Well, my take on it is, as you well know, Phil, that left. Okay, there's a poem I wrote. You can find it. Just Google it. That left. Okay, and as far as the Democrats and Republicans are concerned, they're Republicrats. They drink from the same rotten, filthy, disgusting, slimy trough. And, excuse me, I hope I didn't use too many adjectives there, but the reality is that, you know, we have to understand that this left-right paradigm embodied by the Democrat and Republican parties is a fake. It's a fraud. It's used effectively and has been used effectively for eons in this nation. As far as the first so-called black American president, so what? Do I care about the pigmentation of someone's skin? Dr. Martin Luther King made it very clear when he said that we make our judgment, I'm paraphrasing, we make our judgment of people based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. So I was writing long before Obama was installed. I was writing in 2007. You can still see my writings in Black Commentator, and warning people, because I had done research on who this Obama was. I had read speeches that Obama had made to AIPAC, the American Israeli. Okay, I assume our audience knows who I'm talking about, and so, you know, we have to be clear about that. Brother Malcolm X said, quote, that you know, they're the foxes and the wolves. And I add to that by saying, and they both want to eat you, to devour you, to destroy you, to keep you disempowered. So, I mean, you know, that's my take on it. And hiding behind pigmentation is sort of reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I say pay all attention to all of those suckers behind the curtain, because they're the murderers. Exactly. Okay, and we have to be blunt. We have to be clear about that. Okay, and I do not excuse anyone. I don't care what their pigmentation or their gender is. Anyone who is complicit in this cannot and must not be excused, period. And it is time for all of us, irrespective of gender, color, or anything else that we come up with as a tactic to divide and rule, that the Republicans use, Democrats and Republicans use. It is time for all of us to get off of this stupidity. I call it, you know, the so-called left. As I said, I keep saying it, that left. Okay, and we really have to remember that. It is time for us to be creative. It is time for us to understand we are in the 21st century, and if we don't watch out, we won't have a 22nd century, because we're going to blow ourselves to smithereens. And we're already doing that in countries around the world, whether it's Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, North Africa, specifically Libya, in North Africa, and an endless list that goes on and on. So the bottom line for me is that we have to intensify, not back up. So what happened in 2008 was we moved backwards, not forwards, backwards. And it's time for us to be honest with ourselves and get up, as you say, Phil, you know, it's time to stand up, come up to the plate. Hey, it's time. And at stake is literally everyone on Mother Earth. That's what's at stake in this struggle. Everyone. When every Iraqi dies, when every Pakistani dies, when every Somalian dies, when every Libyan dies, you know, we're dying. It's a piece of us that's dying. We've got to stop it.
That's for sure. And the dying just continues. And we're coming up towards the end of the first hour when we usually take a break. We still have a few minutes. I do want to mention one more time the call-in telephone number. If you all want to call in, have any questions or comments for our guest tonight, Dr. Dahlia Wasfi, or Larry or myself, the telephone is 775-657-5973. Again, that's 775 877-657-5973. And as Larry mentioned, we are further along than we think we are, man. This is big time trouble where we're heading, and we do have to snap out of this lethargy, this silly loyalty to team. Stop being played. People are dying while we're blaming tea parties or Marxists or whatever.
If I could, I want to draw attention to, there's a movement which is, I think it's primarily based in Canada, and unfortunately my Canadian friends, are unable to connect to this website. There's something about a national thing, but that it's open to U.S. callers. But the movement is called Idle No More. And it's the indigenous peoples, really it's as they're growing, and there are solidarity groups in the United States, but they're calling for really what the indigenous Americans have always called for, which is protecting the earth, preserving the environment, and protecting and preserving one another. And you can find out more information at idlenomore.ca. But this is, they are doing a lot of demonstrations, anti-fracking demonstrations, where they are being being treated heavy-handedly, not surprisingly, by the RCMP up in Canada. But these are ongoing, and of course we won't hear about it in the mainstream news, and I'm learning about it through my Canadian friends. But it's like a sleeping giant. That there's really, as bad as things have gotten, as bad as they have become, this is a light, another ray of hope. It's a movement that's filled with truth and integrity, like we were discussing. So I just wanted to mention that.
Oh, I'm glad, and hopefully we can talk more about that after the break here. We are at the top of the hour, and at this point in time, we'd take about a 5-minute break, or whenever Dave is able to bring us back. Again, we want to thank you all for listening so far to the first hour of the program. I want to encourage you folks to come back after the break and maybe even get involved in the conversation. Okay, with that, we're going to pass it back to Dave Corso, and as we are on the break, please take a look at wolfspiritradio.com, which is totally listener supported, and it gives us the opportunity to have guests like Dr. Wasfi on and get the truth out. And hopefully make a positive difference for us all. So if you can, please go to wolfspiritradio.com and look for the donate button and help keep this fight alive. With that, we'll turn it over to Dave Corso. Dave. Okay, well, hello, folks. Welcome back. This is We Cannot Be Silent with Phil Restino and Larry Pinckney. And for those who are just joining us, we broadcast our program on the third Monday of every month on the Wolf Spirit Radio Network. That's wolfspiritradio.com. And we're on from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Time, and that's the third Monday of each month. And if you miss us live, within a day or so, Dave Corso and the people at Wolf Spirit Radio are able to get the archive up on the website, so it'll be available there. Tonight, we have a very special guest. Our guest is Dr. Dahlia Wasfi, and for those who were not with us during the first hour of the program, I would like to just read the quick bio here. again. And for those who already heard it, we do appreciate your patience. Dr. Dahlia Wasfi was born in the United States in 1971 to an American Jewish mother and an Iraqi Muslim father. After graduating from Swarthmore College with a BA in biology in 1993, she earned her medical degree from the University of Pennsylvania in 1997. Dr. Wasfi has made 2 trips to Iraq to visit her extended family since the 2003 shock and awe invasion, including a 3-month stay in Basra in the spring of 2006. She is an activist in support of ending the U.S.-led and U.S.-funded occupations, military and economic, of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Palestine, and a member of the Writing for Peace Advisory Panel. Her website is www.liberatethis.com, and Dr. Wasfi has also been working on a book that she's writing, and we're lucky to already have a couple of segments from that book, and you can find that on the website writingforpeace.org, and that's the Poets Against the War, writingforpeace.org, and Dr. Wasfi's columns there are under the title For Now They Struggle by Dahlia Wasfi, and I highly recommend that you take the time to read those two pieces from her upcoming book. We are into the second hour, and for those just joining in, I do want to read off the call-in number if you have any questions or comments tonight for our guest or Larry Pinckney and myself. The number is 775-657-5973. Again, that's 775-657-5973, and with that, we're going to go back to wait a second, Dave. You mentioned that we already had a caller call in at the top of the hour. Is that caller still with us?
Yes, they are, and you have another one. You have one from the 403 area first, and you have one from the 201 area.
Oh, very good. Well, I better stop talking and give our caller a chance. The first caller from 403, are you there?
I am, sir.
And who might you be, sir?
I'm Bill from Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. So you are getting through loud and clear to Canada, and we thank you for doing so.
Oh, great. Sorry for the misinformation.
Okay, that's great news. That's good news. Well, welcome, Bill. Welcome to We Cannot Be Silent. What do you have to say? Do you have a question or comment you'd like to share with us?
Well, mostly just a comment. I really, really want to say thank you, Dahlia. You're an inspiration to so many of us activists. And I don't know, how many people your speech, the one particular speech that's become famous now has affected. But I see activism globally. It's actually overpowering the evils that are currently running the world. And I mean, we all know who the evil really boils down to is the banking and the monetary system. And once they're, I pointed out to being such the small man behind the curtain, so to speak, it's really going to be not much of an effort.
This is more than just a little bit scary, looks like. Oh, they love it. I love it when the boys up in the Fusion Center get their shit together.
Are we still on?
Yes, dear, we are. We're trying to call everybody back.
Oh, okay.
This happens quite frequently.
Oh, see? Now I know we're pushing people's buttons.
Well, we tell them to get a cup of coffee, shut their mouths, and listen. Don't believe the bullshit that the bosses tell them about how bad we are.
Thanks for bringing us back,
Neil.
Dave.
We're not here right now, but if you leave us your name and number, we will call you back as soon as we get this message. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Larry.
Hi, Larry.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Loud
Yes.
and clear.
Okay.
I think
I can hear you too.
Bill in Medicine Hat may have been trying to call at the same time you were calling them back, Dave.
Is that the 403 area?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. Hello. There we go.
Hi, this is Brendan Neal. We're not here right now, but...
Okay. Maybe for Bill, if you're still out there listening, out there in Medicine Hat, we apologize for the drop. It happens from time to time. But we are back on and encourage you to call back in. Right now, if the caller from the 201 area code is still with us, please come on and say hello. 201?
I apologize for losing my temper this morning.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay. Say again, please.
My name is Craig Sikowski.
Hi, Craig. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Merida, Mexico.
Oh, well, welcome to the program. We're glad you're listening in, and do you have a question or comment for our guest tonight?
No, I just wanted to tell Dahlia she's an inspiration for so many people. I love your stuff. I follow everything that you do. You're a very ballsy woman. Just keep doing what you're doing. I look at things like the other gentleman said from Canada. I'm a money guy. I follow the money. Yeah. These guys should be tar and feathered from, the gallows. They're the biggest criminals on the planet. All they do is suck the resources from all the countries, kill men, women, and children. It's disgusting. It's disgusting what the world has come down to. And with people like you, it's amazing. I just want to know one thing. What's the difference between a person like you, Dahlia, and the other people that say nothing?
Well, I used to be one of those people, unfortunately. So, first I want to say that both to you and to Bill that very much so the inspiration works both ways. So I'm really honored, and actually both of you have made me quite emotional because it's I being separate and not having speaking engagements that frequently anymore, which is understandable since officially the occupation of Iraq is done, though unofficially it's not. Is that I don't get that personal connection anymore. So I'm trying to make sense of what my years of speaking have done, and it's just the highest reward I can get to know that I have encouraged others to take another step in their own personal journeys. I think different people have different things at stake. And different degrees of awareness. And I have to say, as I was telling Phil earlier today, if I didn't have my direct connection to Iraq, I really don't know that I would not be that materialistic capitalist that my society shaped me to be. That's my obligation to share that connection. So I think, I was someone who stayed very quiet for a long, long time, and now obviously I have a really big mouth that doesn't shut up, and so there's hope for everybody. Thank you again. Thank you so much for the encouragement and support, and to have mine back to you.
Well, thank you, Dahlia. Craig, please don't leave us just yet. You mentioned the money, and follow the money, and that's critical in this struggle. Is we've got to follow it right to the source. And there's a wonderful film out or piece out on YouTube. You may have already know of it. It's called "All Wars Are Bankers' Wars," and it's done by Mike Rivero of WhatReallyHappened.com. And it just nails it. It's it's 43 minutes long. All wars are bankers' wars. Michael Rivero. And we do have to be real about this. And the thing is, when you do follow the money, you find out who these people are. We know who they are. And, I want to ask you, Craig, if you don't mind, are you involved in any kind of, activism locally there in New Mexico?
No, I'm in Mexico.
Oh, Mexico. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do radio shows. I have a book coming out. I'm starting up Mentor Radio. I try to be as vocal as I possibly can because I'm sick of the shills. I'm sick of these treasonous bastards. They just go around doing whatever they think they are. They think that they can get away with whatever they're getting away with, and for the time that they have. But I think there's a new paradigm shift. I think there's a new sheriff in town, and people are waking up all over the place. You know, the Federal Reserve is a joke. The Bank of International Settlements is a joke. Council on Foreign Relations is a joke. Everybody's waking up to these clowns. They're the scared little kids that grew up to be bullies. And what do you do with a bully? Smack them upside the head. I'm 6'3", 275. I got a wife and I have a daughter. I don't take shit from anybody. You know, I left that country the day Obama got inaugurated. It wasn't, it was a coincidence, but change? What change? Nothing changed. Guy's been a pathological liar. I understand that you can't elect the president in the United States. They're selected by the CFR and the other powers that be. I understand that. And when people start waking up to the voting fraud in the United States or all over the world, I think we can just, take these guys out. They need to be taken out. They need to be, drawn and flogged.
Well, we have the opportunity
everywhere you turn.
Yes, and you mentioned something. There is an awakening going on, and we do have something right now, and you're engaged in it yourself with your own radio program. The media is owned by these same bankers, the same financiers that are raping all of us.
Absolutely.
And so we're not going to change them. So what we do is we make our own media, which is happening here. And you mentioned your own radio program, Craig. Is there a website that the listeners can go to find out more about it?
No, we're just starting it. We're just starting it. It's called Mentor Radio.
Mentor Radio.
But I'm not here to plug that. I'm here to just send my love to Dahlia and you guys, because now Dahlia has just turned me on to Wolf Spirit Radio, so I'll be listening to that as well.
Great. Great. Well,
there's people waking up all over the place, and once they start understanding, the United States Department of Homeland Security bought 1.6 billion bullets, hollow point bullets. They got 2,700 tanks. When a derivative bubble bursts, the United States is screwed, just like the rest of the world.
Yes,
right.
And we might get a taste of what the rest of the world has been having to endure under our bombs and bullets, like Dahlia's family over there in Iraq. I don't know if we have another caller. I don't want to cut you too short there, Craig.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to send my love. I appreciate
I'm glad
it.
you did.
Thank you, Craig. My blessings back to you and your family. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right.
Okay, I think we
Bill,
got
Bill.
Bill.
Didn't we have remember we had
question.
someone who.
We had
Bill,
a chat question, and Bill is back online. But Bill, before we get back to you, please stay with us. There was someone that was in the queue before you, and that was a chat question for Larry, and it's from Jeffrey. And the question is, Larry, how did you keep your spirits up while you were in prison?
Okay, let me just say this. The bottom line is that struggle is a dialectical affair. In other words, it goes on and on and on. We make incremental movements forward. And for me, in being in prison and in solitary confinement, in general population, et cetera, and very horrible conditions, I kept my spirit up by remembering just what the hell I was fighting for. Just what kind of world. You see, too many times we get caught up in fighting against, and we forget that we're fighting for. Our families, our children, our loved ones, even for folks that we do not even know, we're struggling for. And that's what it was about. That's how, for example, when they would throw me in solitary confinement, I would try to remember what it was that I was struggling for. And I think all of us need to do that. I think that when we look at, for example, Dahlia, that her struggle is not merely her struggle, it's our struggle. And we need to understand that. We need to build those linkages. And that's how I have maintained my sanity. If sane I am, I think I am. And all of us have to do that. Every last one of us. I also want to say this, that the brother who called from Medicine Hat, Alberta, I'm very familiar with Canada, as you may or may not know. I was imprisoned first in Canada by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Subversive Section and the FBI, who colluded together and took my case to the United Nations from Canada, not from the U.S., okay, under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and won the case. Anyway, my point is, also, Phil, I want to mention this to you. Dr. Jewa, Splitting the Sky was very, very active, yes, as you know, in Canada, as well as in parts of the United States. And our struggle, so many times we think that we're by ourselves, and that's what the corporate stream, so-called mainstream, but corporate stream wants us to think. We're not by ourselves, not by a long shot. And we are the change that we're struggling for. We are the media. That's what we really have to remember. So getting back to the question, I maintained my sanity by remembering what it was and what it continues to be that we are struggling for. That's how. It wasn't Larry Pinckney. It was we. It was Larry remembering all the sacrifices that of people who have gone before him, and people who have, for example, Rachel Corey that Dahlia mentioned. This was a sacrifice. We cannot allow these sacrifices to be in vain, and we will not allow them to be in vain. So with that, I'm just going to keep quiet.
Well, thank you, Larry, and keep your eye on the prize, right?
Right.
And I hope that answered your question, Jeffrey, and we do appreciate you writing in through the chat room there. And again, folks who are listening, if you'd prefer not to call but still want to get a question in, please go into the chat room, wolfspiritradio.com, and click on the chat button there and get yourself in. And also one last thing about this, Larry's prison experience. If you go to Larry's website, blackactivistwg.org, and look under the videos section, there'll be a video entitled, a YouTube entitled, Larry Pinckney, A Prison Experience, and I highly recommend taking the 15 minutes or so to listen to it and pass it on to others. We want to get back to our caller Bill from Medicine Hat, Alberta. Bill, are you still with us?
I am, sir.
Oh, good. Welcome back. We're sorry about the drop. It does happen from time to time, and we're glad you called back. What else do you have to say, Bill?
Well, actually, that worked out quite well because it gave me a chance to hear Larry's story there. I'd like to hear. We'll be checking out that YouTube video because, again, that's part of our situation is this cross-border policing system they've got now where this globalization has the entire world being policed by the U.S. and I mean they're really being policed by the state of Israel themselves. So it's we can see where all this globalization boils back down to by the laws that they're introducing everywhere, and the people that incorporate those laws into our systems. But no, I just really wanted to thank you guys. I'm also tuned on to Wolf Spirit Radio now, and I would like to quickly say hello to our Micmac friends in New Brunswick who are putting up a great fight against the fracking, and our Idle No More friends here in Canada and everywhere that are doing such a great job of bringing awareness. And again, Dahlia, it's up to people like you that enthuse us and keep us active, and God bless Rachel Corey, and I just thank you guys for the time and continued success.
Well, thank you, Bill. That website, how do you spell Idle More?
Idle No More. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I think Dahlia is familiar with it. It's Idle No More. I-D-L-E.
I don't know more.
I-D-L-E No More.
Okay. I-D-I-L-E No N-O More .ca. Well, Thank you so much, Bill, for calling in and keep up the fight up there. And you got friends around, and I'm glad we're able to connect like we are because it does give us strength. And Larry said this before, if we have the power, the people have the power if we only just utilize it and recognize it.
And we're taking it back.
Yes.
That's right.
And now we have another caller that just called in. Hello, caller.
Hello, this is Ted from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh, hi, Ted. Welcome to the show. We have our special guest tonight, Dr. Dahlia Wasfi, and I don't know if you've been listening, but
I have been listening.
Oh, great. Maybe we'll just let you ask your question or speak your comment. Please go ahead.
I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I was over in the first Gulf War, and came to an understanding of what we were actually doing over there in in the slaughter of over was it 1 million? With the after effects.
Yeah.
Yes.
And ever since then, it's put a really bad taste in my mouth. And I guess the question that I have is, well, what do we do? I mean, how do we take down the beast, so to say?
Well, go ahead, Dahlia.
Oh, so I get people ask me this a lot, and I get concerned when I hear this question that I've given the impression that I know what I'm doing. I pretty much have been following my heart. My last, or I'll say the first part of my life, everything looked great on paper. I was going to really good schools, very expensive schools, had, all these degrees, and there was, a big hole, and I was miserable. And it took, following my heart and finding something I was passionate about, to point me in the right direction. So the only answer I can give you is a very vague one, and that's to being aware. Once you're aware of what our policies are doing, follow that in a direction that you are passionate about. And I have connections to our Marine veterans as well. So if you can find me on Facebook, or you can connect with me at info@liberatethis.com, because I think it's there's definitely a certain experience and understanding, having been in the Marines in addition to having been in the service. So any way I can connect you, I would be happy to do that.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, don't leave us just yet, Ted. We mentioned earlier the Treason in America conference, and that website might still be up, Treason in America conference, and it would have videos of the different speakers that weekend. But one of the speakers said something at that conference that really stuck with me, and that is every little thing that we do, be it handing out a DVD to somebody or having just a brief conversation while standing in the grocery store line or whatever, sharing a little bit of piece of information, wearing a T-shirt, a button, being an extra body at the local anti-war rally or what have you, whatever it is, anti-fracking, is another pencil hole in the dam. And I really believe in that strongly. You know, what can we do? Do something. And that's actually, in the intro to our show every month, We Cannot Be Silent. It's that, line from Gil Scott-Heron's, Work for Peace, where he says, nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And, I want to say welcome home, brother. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Veterans for Peace organization. It is a very, pretty much left-leaning organization, but the chapters have their own characteristics based on who makes them up. And our Central Florida chapter's pretty much right down the middle. You really can't call us left or right. We strongly adhere to the statement of purpose of Veterans for Peace. So if you haven't already, I would like to urge you to check out veteransforpeace.org and click on.
Yeah,
good.
Just become in contact with the Veterans for Peace up here in Minnesota.
Oh, great. So. And be true to yourself and your own beliefs, and we sure do appreciate hearing from you. Is there anything else before we let you go, Ted?
No, I just really appreciate everything I've heard tonight, and knowing that there's, for years and years, I thought I was crazy because I thought the things I thought, and then, as I've done more research, I've come to find out that there's other people who know the truth and aren't afraid to speak it, and I am very grateful for that.
Well, we're glad you tuned in. I'm
grateful to have you call in, and like I said, I'm at info@liberatethis.com, and I'm on Facebook, and any way I can support you or connect you it's hard to start things anew, so any way, to join something that's already happening is usually, it's for me anyway, an easy way to ease into things. So thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you.
I agree. And we also... Go ahead, Larry.
Ted, is it Ted?
It is Ted, yes.
Ted, you know what? I like the way you put it, taking down the beast. Right on. Because let me put it this way. I'm very blunt. I'm very direct. I don't beat around the bush. We are taking down the beast. The beast is not going to tell you, hey, Ted, you're taking me down. We are taking down the beast. We're doing it one person, one day at a time. But it's increasing. It's increasing at a rate like the caller from Mexico pointed out. It is happening. It is happening. And no, we're not insane. To the contrary, we are sane. That's the whole point. We're fighting not only for our sanity, but the sanity of Mother Earth. All of the peoples of Mother Earth, be they black, white, brown, red, yellow, all the peoples of Mother Earth. So my brother, my friend, as we said back in the day in the party, all power to the people. We are. You see, they thought they wiped us out. But guess what, Ted? We're still around. And we're still struggling over 40 years later. And more people are joining this. And because more people are awakening, they are awakening. So, my brother, Ted, we are taking down the beast. Just remember that. I have to remind myself of that. Sometimes I get very, very frustrated and go, my God! And then I have to remind myself, wait a minute. When I look at where I was, or when I say I'm not really meaning where we, the people, were, say, even just this time last year, I would never have imagined that we would have made as much progress, which is not nearly enough, but as much progress as we have made right to where we are today. So we're taking down the beast, and we're going to create something very, very different. But we need you. We need each other. Each one, reach one.
And Ted, please don't leave us just yet. Thank you, Larry. There was one other thing. You mentioned that you're a Gulf War vet. There's another organization that our chapter of Veterans for Peace has worked with over the years, and it's the American Gulf War Veterans Association, and that's at GulfWarVets.com. And I do want to stress it's a .com, meaning that it's not a government organization. And it's not tied to any foundation funding. It truly is free of those constraints. GulfWarVets.com, and they
I found them.
Oh, that's wonderful. And the national spokesperson for that is a Gulf War vet herself, Captain Joyce Riley, and she's a whistleblower on the Gulf War illness, which goes to the vaccines as well as the depleted uranium, which we were hoping to touch on before the night is out here. So I'm glad you know of it, and share it with other vets, GulfWarVets.com, and they'll send you a free copy of the DVD Beyond Treason, which deals with the Gulf War illness, depleted uranium, and all the other harms done to our troops without their consent or knowledge. Thanks again, Ted, for calling in, and please call in again when we're on.
Okay, we'll do. Thanks again,
Thank
Dahlia.
you.
I'll be in contact with you.
Great. I look forward to it. Take care of yourself.
We'll do. You do the same.
Great.
Bye.
Thank
you. Dave, do we have any other callers or messages from the chat room?
Not at this time, we don't.
Well, I just want to say that, after Larry spoke, I was so inspired. Now, it's almost midnight, and I've had coffee because it's a later interview, but I want to, go in the streets and riot, but it's not appropriate to do that right now. So, but that was awesome. That was just, it's just, usually if I get it, nobody wants to argue with me tonight. But sometimes when I argue with people, they'll tell me that, the soldiers fought for my freedom to speak out. And I try to, having given it some thought, I consider that the last time anybody fought for anyone's freedom was around 1775, 76, and that was only for the white, landowners. Really, I owe my position and my ability to speak out to the civil rights movement and the women's suffrage movement. So these are things that have happened, in the not too distant past. So we've come a long way, as Larry was saying, and we've got a ways to go. But this is other people paved the way for me, and I really liked that concept of the bigger picture. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Oh, you bet. And that's part of the conditioning, Dahlia, that we were talking about earlier tonight on the telephone, is the conditioning of the public, where you get these comments like, how dare you protest out there? Our soldiers are fighting so you can. This nonsense. We've got to educate our fellows. They've done a number on conditioning the public, and a lot of it is with this hero stuff. Anytime you see a soldier, they've been called heroes. Whether it be on the football game, the baseball game, insurance commercials, newspaper, TV ads, and what that does, it goes back to what Hermann Goering said at the Nuremberg trials, about taking a country to war. You could take any country to war. That's easy. Just tell the people they're being attacked and denounce the peacemakers for being unpatriotic, and it's the same play, and we understand what that play is. And we got to be the media ourselves, and each one reach one, like Larry says. We just got to educate somebody. And I would like to say about the women's suffrage movement, our local Cold Pink chapter, my girlfriend is the coordinator for it, has screened a movie for years now. Oh boy, what's the name of it about the women's suffrage movement?
Is it
Iron-Jawed Angels? Yes. Angels. Oh, you want to get inspired, man. You watch that film. But we still have some time, and we started to touch on depleted uranium, and these bombs were dropping. It's not just the explosion that happens when they hit and all the shrapnel that tears people apart. There's also depleted uranium that's left with these bombs. And I was wondering if you could tell our audience a little bit about that phenomenon and what it's doing over there in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Sure. The U.S. military used depleted uranium for the first time in the first Gulf War in 1991, and then all through the 90s when we were bombing Iraq, southern Iraq. Used it again in Kosovo in 99, I think. Used it again in Afghanistan from 2001 to the present, and then certainly during shock and awe, and all the way through the occupation. And so basically what depleted uranium is, the depleted part, that part of the name means that the isotope that is used for nuclear energy has been removed from it. And that's actually a very small amount of the uranium that's mined. The isotope that is used for nuclear energy is 0.7% of what is mined. The other 99.3% is this depleted uranium. And it is depleted having the other isotope removed, but itself, this depleted uranium, is still radioactive. And it is one of the densest materials on Earth. And the Pentagon found that if you use it in your weaponry and whatever, I'm not savvy enough on the military terms, but when you aim a missile at a tank, if missile is the right word, and it's got a depleted uranium tip on it, then it will go through the tank like a hot knife through butter. It's very exciting if you're the Pentagon. But the problem is beyond that contamination of the environment and that destruction is that on impact, whatever depleted uranium is present bursts into flames, and it basically aerosolizes like spraying an aerosol spray can. And these are tiny, tiny particles, microscopic particles that go into the air and into the sand and into the water supply. And these are radioactive particles. It's a low-level radiation, so if you held it in your hand, your skin is strong enough to protect you from this low-level radiation. But it becomes so toxic when people breathe it in or drink it in. Some of the particles are small enough to cross from the lungs into the bloodstream and then deposit in your organs. And this is the most likely etiology for Gulf War syndrome. It is also the most likely cause of what was documented in Iraq after the 1991 Gulf War, which was a 600% increase in Iraq's infant mortality rate and a 300% increase in the incidence of children's leukemias and lymphomas. And certainly the focus was what was used in American weaponry that caused these changes after 1991. We used a little over 300 tons of DU during the first Gulf War. I don't have the figures for Afghanistan or the former Yugoslavia, but it's now estimated that we've now vaporized or aerosolized over 2,000 tons of depleted uranium throughout Iraq. And actually, because we had Ted, who's a veteran of 1991, Dennis Kine, also a veteran of the 91 Gulf War, last name Kyne, he was very outspoken about the impacts of depleted uranium, as well as some of the preventative shots and pills that the soldiers were forced to take beforehand. Anyway, Dennis talked about how soldiers and I think he was in the Army, so I don't know if it's soldiers and Marines, but basically veterans of the first Gulf War were scattered all over the country, and their communication was he argues that there was a deliberate attempt to keep people from sharing what they were experiencing, but it came to light, this Gulf War syndrome, which was classified as a disease of unknown diagnosis. And if you don't have a diagnosis, then you don't get service-related benefits for that diagnosis. So this was a way for the Pentagon to escape taking care of, or basically fulfilling their promises to the veterans of the 1991 Gulf War. But just as it affected those people on the ground, I mean, you consider it lasted 6 weeks. There was actually, I know the ground troops did enter at the end, but it was predominantly an aerial bombardment campaign with every life is valuable, but for such a campaign, there were minimal U.S. casualties, under 300. But by 10 years later, around 10 years later, there were over 12,000 who were dead. And if you think about the people who join the military, it's typically young, healthy men, also young, healthy women. So there's this incredibly high rate of fatality is something that needs to be looked into. There was also increased incidence of birth defects in the children of 1991 Gulf War veterans. And then, of course, you have your own military that was deployed there who are exposed. You have an entire civilian population in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Kosovo, who are exposed to depleted uranium. And I mentioned the figures before for Iraq after the first Gulf War. Today in Iraq, sort of the main symbol of the impact of the U.S. military is the city of Fallujah, where there are significant cancer rates and rates of birth defects. And there's now controversy because the World Health Organization did a study in conjunction with the Iraqi Ministry of Health that basically goes against all the previous data that's been compiled, and they say, there is no evidence of increased incidence. And so a lot of people are now challenging the credibility of the World Health Organization and demanding the release of the data. All that to say that there is a long-lasting impact of our military aggression, and that's illegal.
Yeah, criminal.
Long-term effects, and there are millions exposed. And there's also the possibility that not only depleted uranium was used in Fallujah, but there's a possibility that enriched uranium was used. This is weapons-grade uranium. And frankly, we've used it before in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but with a different delivery system.
Yes.
So this is nuclear war, and we all live on the same planet. So we're harming ourselves. Of course, we don't have to face what Iraqi families, Afghan families face, but that's one of the things that we can see that here with what's happened to returning veterans, and the very high numbers of those who are seeking medical assistance from the VA. So this is something that is not going away anytime soon. I'm sorry, I told you you'd have to cut me off. I can really go.
Well, you did mention Dennis Kine, and he's featured in the documentary Beyond Treason, which is put out by the American Gulf War Vets Association, gulfwarvets.com, and I try to mention that organization as much as possible because it is such a good resource, this is all going on in our name, and I'd kind of like to bring this back around to when we first started tonight, and you were sharing with how you got active and what it was that spurred you to getting active, and here's the thing that's different. We mentioned earlier that during the Vietnam era, people were able to see every night on their television during the 6 o'clock news what our tax dollars were doing to the people that our military was invading and occupying. We were able to see that. And by seeing something that's wrong, if you have somewhat of a conscience, it touches you, it reaches you. But if you don't see it, you don't know about it. And this is the difference in this generation. They learned from Vietnam. They being the people that the masters of war, the people that profit off these wars, and they bought up the media. So we don't see it. We don't see it. And it's hard to be touched by something you don't know about. And what you've had, Dahlia, was a connection there. That the family connection, and then you got to see it, and it touched you. I think there are a lot of good people out here that do have conscience, that do have good hearts, and that just don't know what's going on, and that's yes, the powers that be bought up the media, and they propagate us as much as possible, but at the same time we've got this new alternative media, this other ways where the little people can get the message out to each other. The internet, the websites, the DVDs, and the good old fashioned flyer, that you pass out, the handbill, that worked perfectly well back in the days that you mentioned, 1775 and 76. The point is get the message out, and I think we're, like Larry said, we're really coming a long way, but you had to see it in order to be touched, and it wasn't until you saw it, what's going on in our name, that you were touched, and I think it's incumbent upon us to pass it on to others, and you are a wonderful example, Dahlia, and we will continue to mention you and direct people to your website, which is www.liberatethis.com. LiberateThis.com.
Perfect.
And you also refer people to the Facebook. Could you mention what Facebook address to go to?
Sure. Well, if you look for my name, I've been very fortunate that a couple people have made public figure pages for me. So you can look for Dr. Dahlia Wasfi on Facebook, and you'll find me. Facebook won't let me have any more friends on my personal page, but you can join me. Everything gets posted on all the pages, and that's definitely my website needs a lot of love and attention, and it will be updated by the time the book comes out. But for now, please connect with me on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, where I am at Liberate This. And I just want to say, I think we should stay on air until change comes. And but it's been such a privilege for me to be with you and your audience tonight. I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, we're really glad to have you with us. The book you mentioned, you've been working on it. And it's, if you could, before we leave, could you tell us a little bit more about the book?
Sure. The one big thing I left out when I talked about my background is that my mom was born and raised in New York, but her parents were Holocaust survivors from Austria. So I have a history of occupation on both sides of my family, and that has really, it's very much shaped my efforts. Pretty much, well, you'll see that when the book comes out, that since I was 5 years old, I was trying to resolve the conflict within my family. So at 5, I was trying to resolve the Arab-Israeli conflict. I'm still working on it. But that was really, in the bigger picture, that the way my family was created, it very much shaped who I am. And it will go through, it's my story to convey how I have been forced to balance what are shown as opposing religions, Jewish and Muslim, opposing ethnicities, Arab and Jewish, opposed nationalities, Iraqi and American, but it's all wrapped up into one with me and my siblings, so we have to make it work. And it goes back to the time of my grandparents on both sides, so around the turn of the century, the last century, late 1800s, early 1900s, and how they raised their families, and the goal of the book is to humanize are victims of occupation, and I'm working hard on it. I plan to call the book Until Justice is Served, and I hope everybody can stay tuned, because I still got a lot of work to do, but please stay tuned, and I hope it adds something to the conversation, to the ongoing activist conversation.
Well, we're sure looking forward to it, and if folks want to get a taste of it, again, it's writingforpeace.org, Dahlia? Writingforpeace.org, and look for your name, Dahlia Wasfi, and that's spelled Dahlia, Wasfi, WASFI.
Perfect.
And it's under the title For Now They Struggle, and it's a two-part column here, and that'll give you a pretty good taste of what's ahead with Dahlia and her book. Larry often says something about this, these differences that we have, and how we keep ourselves from getting along. And Larry, what do you say with the folks about disagreeing but still coming together? You put it pretty good, how you usually do, Larry.
Well, I just try to make the point that disagreements are part of being human. If we don't disagree, if we agree 100% all the time about everything, then quite frankly, someone's lying. Mm-hmm. And we don't need liars. We don't need robots. We need critically thinking individuals who really believe in the effort to bring about, a better society, a better world for all of us. All of us is the word here. Okay, so of course we're going to have our disagreements. And another thing, as Brother Malcolm said, we don't put our disagreements out in the open. We take care of that in the closet, and we come out as a united front, and that's why I always in my columns by saying each one reach one, each one teach one. Okay, and we can take disagreement and turn it into a strength, but we have to be very mindful of the fact that do not. People tend to, too many people, particularly in this country, tend to look for that area of disagreement instead of looking for that area of agreement, mm-hmm. and then working from there. And that's what we have to do. Of course we're human. We don't want robots, so as we said back in the day, all power to the people. That didn't mean that people weren't thinking, weren't reasoning. All of us are, or should be thinking, critically thinking, and reasoning. So let's keep that in mind as in this united struggle. I think, Dahlia, your background, ethnically speaking, is extremely not only interesting, but shows how people can, in fact, not theory or merely theory, but in fact, how people can mesh, come together, and create. I mean, you're a creation of that. Physically, psychologically, emotionally, you are a creation of it. So that in and of itself is one heck of a power.
It sure is. Thank you, Larry. Dahlia, you made me think of another fella. You may know of him. You may know him. Miko Peled, the general's son?
Yes.
Yes? Oh.
I'm not personally connected to him. I think I send him, we're Facebook friends.
Yes.
I've seen the 28-minute video of where he's presenting his book, and he is a very powerful story to tell.
And he seems to be doing what you're doing, breaking through that division and with truth.
Right.
With truth. Right. And boy, Dave is very kind to let us go over every month, and we usually do, because we once again have a fabulous guest, but we don't want to keep you. But I believe, and you and I have talked about this privately, that if we're going to stop the 9/11 wars, we've got to get honest about 9/11 itself. Right. And we've got to get honest. We've got to get to the root of things. And everything that's happened, this insanity of the last 12 years has all been in the name of 9/11. And Professor Michel Chossudovsky of globalresearch.ca, he said within a week or two after 9/11, he was on Guns and Butter with Bonnie Faulkner out there in Berkeley, and they were already juicing up the drum beats for war on Afghanistan, and he was saying, it's not enough to be against the war. Everybody's against war. You have to get honest about the big lie that the war is justified on, and that justification is the political narrative surrounding September 11th. And I don't want the show to end without getting that out and telling our listeners, you want to end the 9/11 wars, then you got to get to the truth of 9/11 itself, the big 9/11 lie. And I'm not really fishing for any comments from you, Dahlia. I just wanted to say that, and the truth shall set us free, and we just got to stick with the truth and stay true to it. Larry, was there anything else that you wanted to say or ask Dahlia before we call it a night?
Well, let me just say first that I want to thank our guests. Dahlia, thank you very, very much we hope to have you back.
I would love to come back, and I thank you sincerely.
Really, we really look forward to it very, very much. Also, I want to thank Dave Corso. Dave, you are the workhorse who makes it real. Thank you very, very much. And never forgetting our wonderful audience. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We were treated to a very, very special treat, if you will, tonight. We had people calling from the U.S., from Canada, and from Mexico. Wow. All power to the people. Now, that's what people power is all about. Thank you to everyone out there. And, that's about it. I always say, each one reach one, each one teach one. The struggle goes on. La lucha continua. It goes on. But we are winning. We are. We're not losing. We're winning. The very fact that we recognize the need for struggle is in itself a beginning of victory. So, for the people, everyday, ordinary, black, white, brown, red, and yellow people. So, thank you again, Dahlia. You have been fantastic, as I'm sure you know. Thank you very much, my sister. And what can I say? Anyone who wants to read any of my articles, go to intrepidreport.com. You can find articles. You can still find my articles at Black Commentator, though I am now a former editorial board member and columnist with Black Commentator. My articles are still on BC, so just Google that, and you can find any of those articles there. And, of course, for an overall of the articles from 1968 all the way up to the present, you can go to Black Activist Writers Guild. That's blackactivistwg.org. So, with that, I'm done. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you, Larry. And Dahlia, we want to give you the opportunity for closing thoughts or comments.
I guess my closing thoughts or comments is that, the problem is the caffeine is wearing off way past my bedtime. As I said earlier, the inspiration works both ways, and this was really, you invited me to be on the show, but this was, I hope everybody else got something out of it because I got so much out of it. And I will also repeat thanks to Phil, Larry, and Dave for putting this together. And thank you to everybody on Facebook who shared my announcement and who joined us, and everyone who called in. And if you look for me on Facebook, I will look for you tomorrow because I have to go to bed now. But I wish everybody a great night, and thank you so much. And I stand with you in the struggle until justice is served.
Thank you, Dahlia. Don't leave yet because Dave Corso might have something to say before we sign off. Dave?
I just want to thank Dahlia for being here. And Dahlia, I still love you, baby.
Thank you so much. My love back to you and to everybody. And that's at the, Che Guevara said, I'm going to mess this up, but the real revolutionary is acting out of love, and that's really, it's for my blood relative family, but for the global family. So thank you so much.
Okay. Well, that about does it, folks. Again, thank you to our very special guest, Dahlia Wasfi. It's been a wonderful program. Again, her website, www.liberatethis.com. And please spread the word. Of course, our co-host, Larry Pinckney, and his writings and interviews and everything else that Larry does can be accessed at blackactivistwg.org. Share it with others, and of course, last but certainly not least, second to last and second to not least is our host Dave Corso of the Wolf Spirit Radio Network, wolfspiritradio.com. Please, if you would, keep this alternative media on the air and keep helping us be the change you want to see in the world, and go to wolfspiritradio.com and click on the donate button and help in any way you can. And lastly but not least, we want to thank you all for tuning in and listening tonight and being part of the program, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.
We have an obligation to every last victim of this illegal aggression because all of this carnage has been done in our name. Since World War II, 90% of the casualties of war are unarmed civilians, a third of them children. Our victims have done nothing to us. From Palestine to Afghanistan to Iraq to Somalia to wherever our next target may be, their murders are not collateral damage. They are the nature of modern warfare. They don't hate us because of our freedoms. They hate us because every day we are funding and committing crimes against humanity. The so-called war on terror is a cover for our military aggression to gain control of the resources of Western Asia. This is sending the poor of this country to kill the poor of those Muslim countries. This is trading blood for oil. This is genocide, and to most of the world, we are the terrorists. In these times, remaining silent on our responsibility to the world and its future is criminal. And in light of our complicity in the supreme crimes against humanity in Iraq and Afghanistan and ongoing violations of the UN Charter and international law, how dare any American criticize the actions of legitimate resistance to illegal occupation? Our so-called enemies in Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, our other colonies around the world, and our inner cities here at home are struggling against the oppressive hand of empire, demanding respect for their humanity. They are labeled insurgents or terrorists for resisting rape and pillage by the white establishment, but they are our brothers and sisters in the struggle for justice. The civilians at the other end of our weapons don't have a choice, but American soldiers have choices. And while there may have been some doubt 5 years ago, today we know the truth. Our soldiers don't sacrifice for duty, honor, country. They sacrifice for Kellogg, Brown, and Root. They don't fight for America, they fight for their lives and their buddies beside them because we put them in a war zone. They're not defending our freedom. They're laying the foundation for 14 permanent military bases to defend the freedoms of ExxonMobil and British Petroleum. They're not establishing democracies. They're establishing the basis for an economic occupation to continue after the military occupation has ended. Iraqi society today, thanks to American help, is defined by house raids, death squads, checkpoints, detentions, curfews, blood in the streets, and constant violence. We must dare to speak out in support of the Iraqi people who resist and endure the horrific existence we brought upon them through our bloodthirsty imperial crusade. We must dare to speak out in support of those American war resistors, the real military heroes who uphold their oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, including those terrorist cells in Washington, D.C., more commonly known as the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Frederick Douglass said, "Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters. The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Every one of us must keep demanding, keep fighting, keep thundering, keep plowing, keep speaking, keep struggling until justice is served. No justice, no peace."
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.